So in this situation, I walked in and I was able to joke around with my son first, asking him how school went. And we just had a nice little talk about school and his soccer practice. And then I was able to say, Ben, how many times do you think it is that I've talked to you about putting your stuff away? I was thinking it was around 300 times. And he picked right up on it, as he could tell I was in a good feeling and joking around. And he said, "Oh, no, Dad, I've been counting. I know it's 523 times." And then I said, I don't know how to deal with this. I've talked to you a lot about that. And obviously what we've worked out so far hasn't been working. Do you have any ideas? And he said, "Well, Dad, we don't have some place when you first come into our house to hang up your stuff." And I said, "Are you telling me that if we go to the store now and you got a coat rack that would do it, that would solve this?" And he says, "Yeah." So I said, "Great, let's go." He picked out the coat rack. We came home, put it up, problem solved. Now, the point that I'm trying to make in this story is very simple, is that as a parent, I felt like I was better able to navigate my own ups and downs and my own upset the more I came to realize that it was just my own thinking. So that it was normal to have those feelings, and I still continued to have those feelings at times. But boy, was it helpful for me to learn where it's really coming from. And when I started to see that it was coming from thought, more and more I would catch myself as I started to think up an enormous degree of impatience or upset, and it would start to fall away. And I think that's natural for all human beings, is awareness of the fact of thought wakes us up to the present moment, which allows for new thought to come in. And as a parent, it's always new thinking that changes how we feel and how we look at things. And boy, was that helpful to know that I already had within me everything I needed to know as a parent to do well. And that I started realizing that that was true of everybody, is that everybody already has within them the capacity for new thinking, clarity of mind, common sense, feelings of warmth and kindness and connection. And I found that when I brought those feelings and my common sense to my kids, it brought out the best in them. They started looking forward to having talks about things that were so-called problems, because it allowed both of us to get into a good state of mind. And when we were in a state of calm or clarity or good feeling, it was easy for us to brainstorm and come up with ideas for how to solve problems. And we were both on the same team. And I stopped feeling like I was having to police my kids' bad behavior. I was, instead of policing their behavior, I was helping to draw out their calm and their common sense and their good ideas. So parenting became a participatory process. Here's another example. I remember when my son was about 9 years old, and it was bedtime, and it was time to put him to bed. It seemed like every single time we were ready for him to settle down and go to bed, he'd say, "Dad, I'm hungry. I've got to get something to eat," or "I need a drink of water." And his bedroom was on the third floor, and the kitchen was down on the first floor. So he would go down to get a glass of water or something to eat, and I'd be laying on his bed waiting for him to come back. And of course, he'd get distracted and get caught up in doing something else while he was down there. And I would get more and more impatient and upset and saying, this isn't fair. This is my time. You should be going to sleep. I need to have my time. And then I can remember the day when I saw very clearly that my impatience and frustration was just coming from my own thinking. And it wasn't long before my head cleared, and then I had a whole new idea. And I realized in that moment, I tell you, bedtime is no fun anymore for either of us. It's a process of me getting more and more frustrated and him getting more and more restless. That's not going to work out. Bedtime should be a time to really just enjoy one another and have fun. So I got an idea that at bedtime, I taught him how to play waste paper basketball. And I'd crumple up paper, and we'd put his waste basket over on the other side of the room, and we'd try and make baskets. And the deal was he had to stay on his bed, and I would get the balls. And as I was doing this, I'd get calmer and calmer, and over time he would start to calm down. And then what I've noticed in parenting is that if you draw kids into a calmer, quieter state by your own presence, they're cooperative, they're friendly, they're open, they're wanting to help. And so once we were just able to enjoy ourselves at bedtime, it was easy then for us to quiet down. And then I'd say, okay, Ben, it's time for bed. And he'd go right to sleep. It was just like, oh, thanks, Dad. And this was great, you know. And it turned our bedtimes around from being one of impatience and frustration to one of enjoyment and able to share really nice feelings with each other. And then bedtime stopped being a struggle. And again, all of this came about by simply understanding that my feelings were coming from thoughts so that I could take responsibility for my own feelings. And a recognition that when I got present and my head cleared, I would have all the clarity and common sense I needed to be a good parent. And one final point is that I realized that it didn't matter at all how I was parented, and it doesn't matter at all how other people have been parented. When you understand the principles deep enough, you realize, and you start realizing more and more, that when you wake up to the fact of thought, it really does something for us. It really is helpful. The moment we realize that our feeling is coming from thought, it really helps us. And then we have within us already the capacity for new thinking and common sense and good feeling, and that's hardwired into every single human being. So understanding those 2 points really changed my parenting and made parenting enjoyable, and it began to eliminate the arguments and the power struggles in my parenting. And so that's how that's how I've learned to see the connection between the principles and parenting.